What's up, Mayank? We're live with episode number 2.
Yeah. What's up, man?
What's up? So this is a very interesting one because this is our second episode and we are live in two places. We're live on my channel as well as the Whiteboard channel. What we're going to do is we're going to do a quick status check to make sure we're going fine. I think there might be a bit of a lag. People in the chat, can you let me know? I'm going to open up my monitors. Give me a sec. What's up? What's up, everybody? What's up, Dhaval? Hey, Ankit. What's up, Devi? Paritosh, what's up? Rishi, Divya, Prashant, Raji, Mayank, Abhi, Suraj, Sneha, what's up? Ankita. So today's session is going to be very similar to the previous one, actually. We're going to be taking a couple of questions. We're going to be talking about some questions from the 10K designers community as well. And then we sort of just open it up to the chat, see what direction we want to go. Mayank, so tell me, bro, what's been happening with you? What's your week been like with the Whiteboard, with Cred, everything?
Lot of stuff, man. Building a lot of new stuff ahead. Whiteboard season 3. So planning and reaching out to the guests. And apart from that, focusing a bit on motion design and personal finance. Shashank's course on YouTube on Avalon Meta is really good, but I missed their new masterclass, which they call it as battleground. So yeah, but a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, it's pro.
It's pro league. Yeah, man, pro league. So yeah, missed out on that, but still, man, a lot of stuff going on. GP3, catching up with all the news, and yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, man, I'm going to need you to sort of keep talking because I'm just setting something up here.
Yeah, man. Also, people have been like the number of content creators and all of that, like it was increasing when the COVID period started, and then now that everyone is doing this cool, like, it's not going to go for a long period of time. Like it reduced in the middle, but then everyone's picking up again, like all these other creators. So it's like I'm interested to see how the pattern is going to be, how consistent, and what kinds of variations are going to be brought up by different creators, and how, like, what all is out there and what all new things are going to come up. Because I don't see COVID ending for that. Like I think 2020 is going to be the year of COVID.
What are some interesting types of creators that you've seen? Like what platforms, what kind of stuff are they doing?
So most of the stuff that I've seen are interviews, like, and either one-on-one interviews or one-to-one interviews, or they've been tutorials. Like people have been creating masterclass either on an online platform like free, or they are making it paid. And a lot of people have started building communities as well. Like first there was a 10K designers community. Before that there was a Telegram channel, but now other creators are also creating Telegram groups as well, or their own types of communities to keep it going and like scale it up. So that's been pretty good. Like just as I'm scrolling through Instagram feed, I can see every other sponsored post being about a new masterclass or a new book that they've released, whether it's about design, whether it's about finance, whether it's about magic. Like there are people who do magic tricks and they're like, this is my course on how to learn magic.
So, yeah. I might enroll in that one, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that way it's been really interesting to see at what level are people taking content creation and how they are converting it into content creation, like what their day-to-day job or was like, which was dependent on meeting new people, building up experiences, external experiences. How are they creating, like switching it to an online platform? Like all the DJs, multiple DJs also perform at their homes right now. Like they do live streams of their performances. So that's also pretty interesting, whether it will be continued later on as live streams or whether they will be open to live shows.
Are you, do you subscribe to a lot of newsletters?
I used to. Then there was a phase where I unsubscribed to a lot of them. So now I limit myself to very like certain number of them.
What are some interesting newsletters that you follow?
So one is Neville Medora's copywriting newsletter. Like I make sure I read to everyone, each and every newsletter, even if I'm not able to go through the entire course, because that also gives a better idea of how I can implement nuanced changes. Then there have been a couple of design newsletters, like I follow the Product Disrupt newsletter, and then another one which has been started by Vijay Verma from Zomato. So a couple of design newsletters, a couple of copywriting newsletters, a couple of tech newsletters. Like there is this thing called ACMQ. So ACMQ is about research and data science and multiple levels of like machine learning and different types of computing. So I read their newsletters as well to keep in touch with what's going on. But then I feel with newsletters, like newsletter is one form of keeping yourself updated with what's out there. And after I've been introduced to Twitter, I feel I'm reading more relevant stuff or more latest stuff through Twitter. I just need to find a better way of curating it for myself or like following other people who have it curated. Abhinav, can't hear you, bro.
Yo, what about now?
Yeah.
Okay. It feels like this is a new wave of content creators, especially with YouTube, with Substack. I feel to some extent with Instagram. And I don't think this is like the first time it's happening. It's almost like stuff like this has been happening over a long time. Like I remember when I was in, like I had this one newsletter that I used to run in like 2012 or 2013. I don't think I branded it properly, but it's called like Abhinav's Startup Newsletter or something like that. And I had something like 700 subscribers. I would just send out interesting links. I was running this on MailChimp back then.
Yeah.
It's almost like today newsletters have come back, but it's with Substack, where you're seeing a lot of people become their own creators, and Substack lets you monetize as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There definitely wasn't as much YouTube back then. I think that is still fairly recent. There definitely was, but I think with YouTube, there's always been some sort of entry barrier. Like the bar has been slightly higher because with YouTube, you do expect a certain production quality. And it was really difficult to have that kind of production quality. And today we have tools like this live stream, for example, right? Super smooth experience. So not something we could have run a few years back. So it's almost like the tools for content creators have also caught up.
Definitely. Like also I feel as the tools get simpler, more people will be accustomed and want to try it out. Like the same is with things like motion design, for example, or 3D design, like using Blender or Cinema 4D for 3D. Like not a lot of people use it or have used it yet because the tools are not that easy or they don't find it that comforting. Like looking at the interface itself can seem a bit intimidating. So once there is something like a Figma for motion design, I feel a large cohort of people will start delving into motion design as well. Like it depends on the like approachability and comfort with the tools. Like if something looks comfortable, they will go along and provides more convenience. People will start using it. And also, like talking about newsletters versus content creators, I feel although newsletters are also content creation, but it is something which there's a lot less production cost or pre-production cost than there is compared to YouTube, because there is so many things to handle when it comes to YouTube, like you mentioned about video editing, quality of the video, quality of the stream, and multiple other factors. But with newsletters, it's a lot more easier to handle. And also, YouTube is something which you can decide what to watch, when to watch. It doesn't keep stacking up in your emails. Like newsletters, on the other hand, you are more mindful towards, I feel, what are you reading, because you only want the most, you mostly want the things which add value to you rather than something that's pitching to you
Mm.
for their own value.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with newsletters, the relationship is slightly different because when you are building an audience on somebody else's platform, so you're building it on YouTube or you're building it on Instagram, you're very dependent on the algorithm,
Right.
which is the Instagram algorithm doesn't show it to all your followers. So YouTube doesn't show it to all your subscribers. It shows to a certain percentage, and based on performance, it keeps upping these numbers. With something like newsletter, it is a direct relationship. So email is a very neutral platform. You sort of own your audience a little bit more because you now have their emails. You have your email list.
It's a lot more personalized as well, I feel.
Yeah.
But that's subjective. I'm not sure of that.
Mm. I think one interesting thing that newsletters also allowed to do was that a lot of people aren't really comfortable with content creation. So in fact, this is something I tell a lot of creators, which is one easy way to dip your toes in and become a little bit of a content creator is to be a curator first.
Right.
Which is, if you are reading interesting stuff, you are probably not putting these anywhere. They're in your browser history. Sometimes they're in your bookmarks. But being a curator is a good way to sort of show that what kind of stuff you are into, and that helps build an audience to the point where when you're ready to make your own content, you're not starting then. You've already been sort of curating content, getting people ready for what to expect from you.
Yeah, that's your kind of research as well, right? Because kind of research and figuring out what type of content would you create that would get more traction and get more reach, and that you would do by curating content and sharing it with other people and seeing the response. So I feel that's a great way of kind of researching and testing beforehand, before deep diving and going into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yo, Mayank, what's up?
Yo, what's up?
Yeah, so
There were
man,
some technical issues, but yeah, we're back.
so for everybody who wasn't on that stream, welcome. Today is Thursday, which means it's Whiteboard live day today. Every Thursday we go live on the Whiteboard.fm YouTube channel. Today we couldn't do that. We were about 10 or 15 minutes into the stream when our streaming provider cut it off. They're having some difficulties. So here we are. Yeah, Mayank, can we connect back to what we were talking about?
Yeah, bro, I was asking you about 10K and what other stuff are you up to? And then we were talking about how the current cohort has completed the basics. And now that the foundation is built, we are building buildings over the foundation. So how's that working out? And one of the examples was that through design officers, which is what we have within the masterclass, where we are providing feedback through their Figma files or hosting live lessons and so on and so forth.
Cool, man. So let me recap for the people who are joining in. Whiteboard.fm, that's the podcast we run. In its new season 3, we have a new segment called Whiteboard Live, where Mayank and I go live every single Thursday. And we take questions. We talk about design. We talk about what's going on in our lives. We talk about what's happening in the 10K designers universe. And before this stream got cut, we were talking about how
newsletters versus content creators.
Yeah, we were talking about content creators. We were talking about how the tools for content creators has enabled more people to come online. These tools are newsletter tools. We have better video making tools. We have better live tools as well. But one of them failed us tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think let's start fresh. Folks, feel free to drop your comments. You can also use the question feature, which is at the bottom. Some of you might see this. I'm not sure if everybody can. Where you can see a small question mark icon. You can use that to ask questions. Cool. Let's get into it. Yeah, man. So one thing I was talking about is now that we're halfway through the masterclass cohort, a lot of the activities have now changed to being design challenges, to being more hands-on experience of actually doing projects. A lot of these problem statements are ones that I've borrowed from companies that hire designers and use this as a part of their interview processes. We're also going to be getting some okay, I'm not going to reveal this last part. But also we're going to getting some more interesting design challenges, but I'm going to talk about that way later in private. But I think that is sort of like the arc that a beginner designer does take, which is initially it's about like you don't know what you don't know. Everything seems like a blank open field and you have no idea what the map is in your head. So starting off, you do need to know how to use the tools, how do you, what kind of processes to follow, what kind of mindset and frameworks do you need. But once you have that, the thing that you really need is to do hands-on work. This hands-on work can look like design challenges. It can be things like it can be things like internships. It can be things like freelance projects. Yeah.
Definitely,
Damn,
man. Like,
yeah. Go
lot
for it.
of
Go for it. I'll
projects,
tell you.
lot of things that are going on in terms of, and there are different ways of finding work as well, right? Like personal projects has become something which a lot of designers or anyone actually who wants to start doing personal projects, they've limited that to solving problems which they are creating. But how can, like, not everyone is able to actively look for problems or see what's out there or approach people that, hey, do you have a problem? If I feel like it's something that needs solving, I can go for it. And also people don't think like, people think that personal projects need, or like projects mean solving problems for other people, like, or like they can't distinguish whether they're solving it for themselves or for other people. For example, branding, promoting yourself, that is a problem as well. Like if you can figure out how you're promoting yourself, you can learn how to promote someone else on social media, how you can help other people or other companies social media growth or their PR growth. That is solving problem as well. That is kind of a personal project or a project you're doing for someone else, which I feel is very like people don't realize that, or they're not understanding it, because every time someone is asking for a personal project or thinking of a personal project, it directly comes down to case studies, which should not be the ideal case.
True. Man, I was going to say before this that I'm really bummed that our YouTube live didn't work out, because we were on such a good streak. We were on 1 of 1 and now the second one is down. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll keep this one short. We'll jump into questions a little bit earlier. We did have a few guests, but I guess we can't do that tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing that next Thursday. Let's take a few questions, bro.
Yeah.
Folks, feel free to ask questions. You can use the question feature or you can just leave a comment and we'll get into it. This is going to be a slightly shorter live than we would have done on YouTube, but hopefully we can get something interesting out of it.
Tell us something about GP3, Abhinav.
Why, bro?
One of the questions, bro.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't see this. Yeah. So folks, hopefully by now you know what GPT-3 is. It's a tool by OpenAI. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I've put out a full IGTV video on it. But what's interesting is in a few months, we're going to see a change. GPT-3 is going to become a part of your design process, which is right now, what are the things that are part of your design process? You might do some amount of research, you do information architecture, you do wireframing. You might use different tools at different points. You might use certain tools for wireframing. You might use certain tools for visual design. You'll use certain tools for prototyping and motion. You use certain tools for handoff. We are going to see a new slot being added to this design process, which is going to be, I'm going to call this step of the design process.
I would call it verification, because you're comparing.
Verification is not, I don't know.
For verification, right? Or verification or design testing is what I would call it. And this is the reason why. So, like, I don't know. So for those who haven't seen it, they can search for the common example of GPT-3 being used for design. That is in Figma. There's a plugin where you put some text and you get the respective design for it. So if you put in that I want a screen with buttons and shop icons and many other things, it will create a screen with all those elements and maybe create iterations of it as well. So why design testing or verification, according to me, would be the name for that process, is because you're checking how, if you are entering text, the design that you're getting is something what a common person would expect if you're entering that text and wanting a design, right? But as a designer, you will know what works and what doesn't. And if your design is similar to that, you can get some level of an idea of whether you are able to solve a problem, or whether you're just solving, or whether you're just creating what they want and not something that they need.
I would call this step creative generation, which is once I'll call it generation, like generative prompts.
Right.
Creative generation. I'll probably coin a better term for it over time. But I think the idea is that you will now use GPT-3 as a team member to bounce off and get ideas, which is GPT-3 is going to do a lot of the manual work of generating options for you. And you might do this, I would say personally, sometime between your wireframing and your visual design state. You'll have a step called generative design, where you're going to figure out a quick way of getting iterations out. And I think that's going to be super interesting. Yeah, I think this is definitely going to improve the communication process as well, which is now I think a lot of product managers are going to start using this to include real screenshots in things like their PRDs, which is right now also a lot of product managers do use things like Balsamic. They use it to create wireframes and just convey ideas. We are going to see that more, but now these wireframes are going to get slightly higher fidelity.
Yeah. I feel it's going to create a better, adding to the communication as well. Like you mentioned, right? That once the product manager comes up with the requirement that, hey, this is what is the requirement and this is how it should look, you can also create your versions of it and show that this is why this will work and this would not work, which is something which even if you had to make your PM understand, you would only have to end up creating more iterations for it. But now that effort has reduced.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So for folks who are asking, no, it's not out yet. There is no plugin that exists. It's still a prototype somebody's created. The main reason for this is that the GPT-3 API is currently in private beta. So to get it, you would have to apply for it. Eventually, you will start getting third-party applications, which is right now, if you want to use it, I think the best way to do it is to apply for the API and then put it in your prototypes. But we are going to see that in a few months. It is already opening up. There are a few tools out there which let you directly interact with it. Cool, man. Let's take a couple questions. Mayank, you want to pick something?
Sure, let's do this. Is micro interaction prototype necessary while making case studies? A lot of case study related questions.
Any that look interesting to you? You want to talk about?
Yeah, bro. So this is interesting. Survi Chopra 23 asks, starting out in GFX, not getting any projects, what should be done? So how do you feel? How do you think someone can get into GFX?
I would say there's a few parts to it. Which is when you're starting out, the very important thing you need to do is you need to build your foundation. What this foundation is looks very different for which field you're getting into. So for something like GFX, which is like doing graphics, you need to understand what exactly what does graphics mean to you? What is GFX? Right? Because it's a catch-all phrase. It refers to a lot of different things. With something like that, it's usually better to focus on a certain thing when you're starting out. For example, GFX, the kind of clients that you get will be very different. You could do graphics for YouTube channels, for Twitch streamers. It could also just mean doing social media banners and things like that. A lot of GFX is creative editing, which is trying to do creative photo manipulation. which is cool, but you have to think about the skills that you're learning. What do the clients for that skill look like? It feels a little wrong to me to first learn the skill and then look for the demand. Ideally, in the area that you want to get into, which is, let's say, if it's design, if it's graphics design or it's UI UX, ideally you should look forward first and then backtrack to the kind of stuff that you want to do. So with GFX, I would say probably the thing is to figure out a particular thing that you're doing. What do you think?
Yeah, man, definitely. Like, also, like, I feel the context with which Surbi asked about GFX is not in terms of normal graphic design, but I'm pretty sure that would be regarding creating videos and creating like lots of video effects. So might be an interchange between GFX and VFX. So I feel 3D, like 2D level, like 2D graphics and video effects were the old or current thing. I feel now for future purposes, like 3D is going to play a lot of roles. So using softwares like Blender or Cinema 4D, of course, adding to what you said about creating a foundation and so on and so forth, but using the right tools, which are now going to be the future probably, like GFX, then Unity, then things like Unreal Engine. So these softwares are going to be like really intensively used future. So if you want to get into the game early, now's the time to explore these softwares. So I feel that's all. Like apart from that, it's all practice and feedback and working on that.
It's also, I feel like one thing that is really important is for you to do your research, which is what you might be calling GFX might have a more specific term in the industry you want to enter. Right? So for example, GFX when it comes to UI UX design might refer to illustrations. And then what you would say is, how do I become an illustrator? So, or if you're trying to get into effects, graphic effects for games, it's called something else there. If you're trying to get into video effects, it's different for video effects for YouTube and for streams. You also have things like VJ loops, which are things for live performances, which are these video effects. So I would say a lot of it is research. Can we take some more questions, Mayank?
Yo, Abhinav, one interesting question is, can you explain the title 10K Designer in Residence?
So the cohort members of the first cohort, the 10K Designers Masterclass, the official title that they're using on LinkedIn is Designer in Residence. The main reason for this is that the way the program has been designed is for you to get real world industry experience. What this means is build up the kind of communication styles, the kind of processes, the kind of mindsets that you need to work effectively in the industry. So the term, this is overall, the role is modeled very similar to how accelerators, there's actually a bit of an analogy, which is accelerators typically have an entrepreneur in residence. These are people who work with the cohort, with the startup cohort, and these are people who can who bring that sort of technical know-how. So founder to designer in residence, the whole idea is that you get to experience what it's like to work in a product company while you're learning how to be a product designer, rather than learning first and becoming a product designer at a company later. So it's like the whole cohort has been set up in a way that it's a set of experiences that make you very familiar and very comfortable in the kind of environments you're going to be in when you embark properly on your product design journey.
Yeah, bro. Like, give an example of similar things as well, right? Like, Y Combinator is something which a lot of people who are in startups or in companies, working in companies, know about it, but a lot of beginners don't know about it. So, what is that about?
So it's almost like, so I have made a video about this, about how there is we're seeing waves of online education. I'm not going to get too in depth over there, but basically the idea is we're now moving from content-based programs, which is, it's all about the videos, it's all about the material, to more experience-based programs, which is, it is a group experience, number one, which is, it's a cohort. So typically with an online lecture, there's an instructor and then you are watching the videos and then you are doing the assignments. But it's just a sort of one-way interaction. The instructors put all this stuff and you check it out on your own time. With a cohort-based model, the way that changes is that it's time-bound, and you have other cohort members who are doing this with you. So it becomes more of a community experience, which is it's not just information being exchanged from the instructor to the learner, but it's learner to learner, multiple learners with each other, creating small groups, doing different types of one-to-one, end-to-end, one-to-end. So that is the main difference with a cohort-led model. So it's almost like with things like Y Combinator, with things like accelerators, it's not really about the content. It's more about being in that environment, because in the future, when you are hiring a designer for your team, you are going to remember back to the 29 other people who are a part of your cohort, because those people are now a part of your network. It's almost like those people are your alumni. So you are going to look there first. So it goes the other way around as well, which is now that you've formed an alumni network, which is something that a lot of online courses aren't successfully able to do, you can now get opportunities and you can get recommended, you can get referred. What this effectively looks like is that instead of applying to jobs, you directly get into round 2 of the interviews. I'm not saying you'll guarantee get a job with your cohort members or whatever, but you can use this to find collaborators, co-founders, as well as colleagues. So what it'll look like is the 10K Designers Network. You're going to have an alumni layer. You're going to have startups who are hiring from it. And let's say you join, like you, the person watching this, joins cohort number 4, cohort number 7. You are now going to have this huge alumni network of all the previous cohorts, all the companies that have hired from here. You're going to have this big base of, this entire stack of experiences. So this is sort of like a thing which will compound over time. And what's interesting is the cohort right now, cohort number 1 is also going to get to see the advantages of this, which is for them, a lot of these new things will happen later. So it's almost like you now have this alumni network, which is sort of like a lifetime thing that you are now a part of. Yeah.
It's also about like this alumni is going to be selective alumni. It's not going to be that, okay, you have to explore and see which alumni is helpful and what kind of alumni is going to add value to you, which happens at a lot of places, like in colleges as well. If there's so many people, you have to keep exploring and doing multiple things. But a lot of that will already get filtered out and ready for people joining these cohorts on multiple, like different types and kinds of cohorts, that you'll have selective alumni who are there for the same purpose that you are there in this, like in the same masterclass or whatever other platform you are a part of. So it's definitely going to be like, it's going to be a lot less effort and a lot more value.
I'm going to answer one more question where somebody said, how do I get started in freelancing? Paraphrasing, roughly that was the question. The way to get started in freelancing, of course, is to first have your skill, which is you want to figure out what exactly is the value you're bringing. Coming back to the initial question about how you should get into GFX or VFX, the idea is if you want to start freelancing, you got to first look at what kind of jobs are out there. Then you backtrack and then you start forming your learning paths to go in that direction. Beyond that, a lot of freelancing is being on platforms, being active there, effectively engaging your current clients, getting leads for future clients, figuring out how over time you can break the dependence on these freelance platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, where there's a lot of competition, to having your own distribution channel, which is your own blog, your own set of clients. You might have a YouTube channel, you might have different things out there that sort of overall becomes your personal brand. People who want to read that, here we go. I had a copy lying around. You can definitely check out Pajama Profit. This is a book that Varun and I wrote back in, we wrote this 2 years ago. So like July, what's the date today, Mayank?
Today's 23rd July, bro. 23rd July, 2020.
Okay, so July 18th was the 2-year anniversary of Pajama Profit. So this book has been out for 2 years. It's an Amazon bestseller in a couple categories. It's also designed not to be 100% freelance thing. It's not meant for, it's not really something that you keep reading. The point of this book is to take action, which is a lot of people with freelancing. After you do it, you're like, oh, this was easier than I thought. It feels intimidating to ask a stranger for money and give something in return, right? That doesn't come naturally to you. So the book is actually very small. If you look at it, it's designed to make you take action as soon as possible. And then you can always come back and reread certain sections. You can dive in further. Since Varun and I are making online content, this is sort of like an introduction to that. And then, of course, every week, every month that we put out content, all of that is a continuous journey, a continuous lifelong learning path that we have figured out. Yeah.
Also, clubbing two questions. One, for a lot of people who are seeing people who are a part of the cohort, they're like, okay, their value is it looks like they've gained some value because they are branding themselves and portraying, telling everyone that, hey, I'm a 10K designer in residence. For non-10K designers, how can a fresher tackle problems for starters? That is, how can they gain their perceived value or improve that?
Got it. So I would say that where it all starts, there's one point where everything starts, is self-awareness. Self-awareness, what I mean by that is if you are somewhere in the design journey, you're at a different point compared to everybody else, right? You are not where I was, let's say, when I started. You're not where Mayank was when Mayank started. You are your own person. You are taking your own journey. You have your own background story. You have your own origin story of why you are here right now. So everybody's path is different. That's one thing to understand. Everybody's path is different. There is no wrong way of doing it. It's just what is the path that you're taking. Self-awareness means knowing number one, and then secondly, having the ability to know where you are right now, which is, can you accurately place yourself saying, okay, I am going to be honest with myself. I would say that this is what the map looks like for UI UX design. These are some things where I've leveled up. These are some things where I've not leveled up. The things where I have leveled up, these are my strengths. These are things that I could work on further. And then with your learning, not being very general, being very specific with your learning, which is now that you've identified what these bars are and you leveled up in different bars, take one of them, go deeper into that. Either by, it's not just deeper into that by studying it. You will need to apply a lot of that theory. So everything that you're learning, try to apply it to projects. You just try to get freelance projects. If you've been learning for a while, you should have freelance projects. Or try looking for internships. You can definitely work on conceptual projects as well if you think you're too early. But coming back to this, self-awareness is super important. You have to know where you are and you have to 100% accept it, right? There have been times in my life where I've been stuck for a few months because I just wasn't ready to accept, right? I didn't want to see what I wasn't good at, right? I was just focusing on the things, and focusing on your strengths is a great thing, but every once in a while you need to look at your weaknesses because they start then affecting your performance. So it's not that you have to focus on your weaknesses. You should double down on your strengths as well. But overall, that's the idea. You have to first accept where you are to be able to change. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to move forward.
Makes sense, definitely. That adds a lot of value. Also, answering Sagar's question, how do we know if we are leveling up or not? That comes with analyzing, right? With every project and the results that you're getting, you need to analyze and check what kind of response are you getting. That if you're getting more work, or if you're applying or reaching out to someone for a freelance project based on your previous projects, and if you're getting more work, that shows that you're leveling up. And then based on all your projects that you've done over time, you get a sense of analysis and realization that, hey, your work has improved in terms of handling your projects, in terms of the quality of your work, in terms of the time you took, and multiple other factors. So being aware and knowing of like how your growth is happening is your own way of figuring out how you are leveling up in your own game. Rohan's asking how to get out of a burnout. Try different things, bro. Try exploring. Don't stick to one thing for too long. Try different things. Like take a break if you want. There's no harm in taking a break and giving yourself some time and giving yourself time. As that is happening, you'll automatically realize that if you're missing something, you get back to it. And if you're not missing it, you already switched to something else which has caught your interest. Like don't force yourself into doing things. I feel that is one of the primary reasons of burnout, when you force yourself to do something which you're not willing to do anymore.
Yeah, I would say burnout is very tricky to deal with because one of the main reasons is a lot of times you're not able to identify the cause of burnout, which is sometimes you feel like you're just in it and you don't know how you got into it and how you this thing. Like you might have a fuzzy idea that it started around this time. Maybe it was because that one thing really pushed me. Right. But identifying the cause of burnout, I would say is something that helps, which is once you identify what it is, you can start examining your relationship with that thing, which is if it's let's say it's a client who's pushing you a lot, you might want to take a step back at this point and say that, hey, is this normal? Is this amount of pushing normal? Or is this client irrational? Are they expecting too much from me? At that point, you might want to take some action on this. A lot of times burnout could be because of, I don't know. Actually, there's a lot of
there are a lot of
sources
factors.
of burnout.
It's mixed, like not just work-wise, but also personal reasons. Like there are a lot of times when you just are tired. Like I was talking to you about it a couple of days back when I was like, bro, after season 3 of Whiteboard, I might want to take a small break because I'm starting to feel it getting saturated, or maybe that I want to give myself enough rest to be able to explore more and push even harder once I get back to it. So I feel a way of like burnout does not mean that you're done with it. It's also a way of your body and mind telling you that, hey, take some rest. You need some Zen kind of a period so that you can do even better and push harder later on.
Yeah, man. I would say identifying is important. Once you have that, taking action on certain things that you can take action on is important. But I think a lot of times it's just about the white space, right? Which is in your design, things look crowded and uncomfortable when there's not enough white space between them, right? And then your app starts feeling not great. It's a similar situation, weird analogy, but a similar scene with the kind of projects you're doing. You're not giving enough white space, which is you might be like too tightly packed. So a lot of times giving breaks or switching to different things might be the answer. I don't know. Might be the answer.
Yeah.
I have a question here.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead, bro. What's the question?
Somebody says, I have to scroll back up. How should I be a part of 10K designers? Officially, there's 2 ways of being part of it. Number 1 is the masterclass, which is a 3-month intensive design program. Registrations are not open, so you currently cannot get in. However, the next cohort will start sometime in the fall. So what that means is like August, September is when you would have to apply. So that is the masterclass. You can, of course, if you want to dive further into it, check out the website, 10kdesigners.com/masterclass, or actually just 10kdesigners.com. That'll take you there. Besides that, we also have a Discord channel, a Discord server, which is meant to be a place to get design feedback, meet other designers, and have a tighter feedback loop. What I mean by a tighter feedback loop is when you're self-learning, one of the reasons why self-learning can get, how do I say this, demotivating, or it can feel like you're clueless at points, is because your feedback loops are too long. right? This is something that's applicable in design as well, which is, let's say you're working on a project and you get to know how the project is only 3 months later, then that is your feedback loop. Versus what you want to do, the reason why design processes are iterative is you want to have smaller loops so that you feel that momentum of making progress and it keeps pushing you forward. How do you close feedback loops? How do you create shorter feedback loops? It's by being a part of a community, which is if you work at a company which has designers, that is your community, right? Those are the people who will help you figure out how to close these feedback loops. If you're in college, hopefully there's a few people who are also learning design, that you might know on campus. You should probably try to figure something out together. That is your community. If not, if you want to go even broader, that's what the 10K designers community is for, which is, it's a private group, number one, and it is a paid group, which is, it's meant for people who are serious about leveling up, who, it's not, definitely not for everybody. Like I can say that right now, because for most people, they might not know what to do with the group. So the 10K designers group is the 10kdesigners.com/community. It's for you only if you are at a point where you think it's important to grow your network and to get direct feedback. So those are the two ways. Beyond that, we put out a lot of free content. Which is, we've got this thing which was supposed to be on YouTube. This is Whiteboard Live. It happens every Thursday. It's conversation format between Mayank and I with a lot of questions. We also have a big repository that's building up of design content. You can check out youtube.com/whiteboardfm. You will find interviews with a lot of designers. You will also find video case studies, which are these small videos where a designer actually walks through their process. Typically, that gives a lot more context than just looking at a case study online. The whole idea is that I don't want to be the only one talking about design. We want to create this sort of ecosystem where multiple people are sharing their experiences. Whiteboard.fm is one step in that direction. Mayank, any questions?
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of questions about freelancing and how to upskill and what kind of skills to learn and what are our views towards design. So for a lot of these questions were answered in the first live session of Whiteboard.fm. So for those who haven't seen it yet, you should go to Whiteboard.fm YouTube channel and check out the first live. Oh my God, you've got 10K designers bottle, or is that a sticker on the bottle?
Yeah, man. I'm kind of not subtly flexing the bottle.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like for those who haven't seen the first live, you should see that. Regarding the content of what we are doing with Whiteboard.fm and booklets and UI sources and the cohort and community, it's all about being one brand for which every designer can go to. That is that one place where if I need to see anything about design and projects and how to do freelancing and so on and so forth, there's that one place where you can see all of it. So 10K designers is that go-to place.
For sure.
Also, a really nice question which I saw was that if you're doing a side project and some designer already published a better version of the same idea, should you keep working on it? Should you not keep working on it? What would you do?
Interesting, dude. That's an interesting question. Let me talk about that. So, Mayank, you are lagging a little bit, by the way. So I'm going to keep it a little forward. I'm going to keep it moving forward. Here's the thing. The same idea, when multiple people do it, can become multiple versions of things, which is in the 10K designers masterclass, when we have assignments, we sort of break down different problem statements for different groups. So we roughly have some version of teams. And roughly we give a similar problem statement to every single person. However, the kind of output that each person has still varies, which is all of you people watching this, right? All the designers in the chat. If I do give you a problem statement to work on, every single person will submit something totally different. No two projects will be the same. That's because the kind of inputs that you take, which is your research, is going to be very different. Your knowledge of that field beforehand is going to be very different. The kind of research that you do. So I might look at very different sources compared to you. I might conduct different types of primary and secondary research than you might. So the whole idea is that no two people will have the same output. So even if somebody has taken the same idea and pushed it forward, think about how can I do this differently? Which is, how exactly can I use where I am, which is my past knowledge of things, and my process. How can I do that to come up with something that is different? And by different, I don't just mean like in terms of visual design or in terms of the concept. Different throughout. Because if you look at any product, right? If we're talking about ideas here, the idea by itself is meaningless. It's the execution. But beyond that, the product needs to solve a problem, right? So product, and then you have a problem, and then you have a solution that the product solves. You can choose a different version of the problem, like change it by a few degrees. You can choose to focus on one part of it rather than the whole thing. Your solution as well, you can have totally different solutions. So overall, to wrap this up, to summarize, even though somebody might have done a similar idea to you, you should definitely go ahead and do it, because your process is different from theirs, your background is different from theirs, and it'll be very different. Siddharth says that you have the benefit of peer learning. Definitely. Like, this is something which the cohort members see firsthand, which is when they're at the start of an assignment, they have the same problem statement. But towards the end, they can actually jump into the Figma files of the other people, and they can see this firsthand, where what people have done is so different, right? And that gives them ideas. That gives you ideas around, I could have done this differently. Why didn't I think of this one thing? When they did research, they did this one part. Why didn't I do that? Or even if I did it, you might have reached a different conclusion. Yeah.
Definitely. Like, while I take feedback, while I'm giving feedback to the 10K cohort members, I keep telling them to check out what other cohort members have done. Not just in terms of the design, but to see the feedback that we've given them as well, because that's something which they could have implemented, but they didn't think of, and so on and so forth. So you're not just learning from each and every person, which also I feel can limit in terms of teams, because when you're in a 4 or 5 member team, you can learn amongst 4 people, and you keep yourself, I don't know whether it's mentality or whether it's just the ecosystem that gets set, that you limit yourself to your team. And when you're comparing, you compare teams and not individuals. But when you're in an initial phase where each person is for their own self, you're learning from each and every person, and that also goes a really long way. Like, that is an individual based learning, and when you're in teams, you have a team based learning, such as how is that team working together. And if your team is not working together, you realize what changes can you bring in your workflow of working as a team. And both of them are very different. And so, yeah, that definitely adds a lot of value.
True.
Abhinav, when are we going to see a reel for how to flex?
You're not, dude. That's something you have to figure out yourself.
What other questions, bro? Can you see any other question that you want to answer?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that says it's amazing to see another designer look at something that was in your blind spot. 100%, for sure.
Yeah, bro. For now, let's ignore the sleep. Like COVID's going to take everyone's sleep for a toss.
let's
Keep
take
commenting, guys.
let's flip this, Mayank. Let's instead of us taking questions, let's ask questions
Oh,
to the
nice.
chat.
I would like that.
Yeah, let's do it. You have something in mind?
Cool, man. So, what is the top skill that you guys are looking for learning in terms of design? Like, what kind of design are you guys more focused on? Product, UI, UX, motion, 3D. I already named 5 types. Like, or maybe different types of process. Are you guys wanting to figure out more about research, about how to write case studies, how to articulate your work, how to document and plan stuff
Long question,
beforehand?
man. What's the question?
My question is, what are people interested in right now? What's going on in people's
Got it.
minds while focusing or while during this period? Like, what is their top thing on their mind that they want to learn and really improve on out of all these topics?
I can tell you what that is for me while we start getting answers. One of the main things for me is figuring out system design, which is not the concepts of system design, but setting up systems now that we have so much stuff happening, which is we have different groups of people now. We have the cohort, we have the 10K designers community, we have the platform, our audience on Instagram. We've got our different YouTube channels. It is a lot about figuring out systems and processes because now things are getting, the scale of everything is just so much different.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some answers here. A lot of people say UI, UX design.
How to grab an opportunity.
Startup skills, writing case studies, animation. Nice. Product. Tell me about this, dude, Mayank. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
All of these, so people are learning a lot of different things. You think now that we have so much stuff on the internet, so many resources, has it become easier or has it become harder? Because I think at some level it has become harder, which is it's difficult to see, it's difficult to know what to do because there's just so much volume. What do you think about that?
So I have a different take to it, which is that agreed, there is a lot of volume and there are a lot of things to learn. Is it easier? No, I don't agree with that. I also believe it's harder, but for a different reason. So my reason is that whenever someone is early to something, early in any kind of field which has not reached its peak yet, but they can see it getting a lot of value later on in the future, they go towards it, they work for it, and by the time it's reached the peak, the early bird gets the worm. And if you're late to the game, you're late in getting value. The people who are earlier, they already juiced out whatever they could get out of what was out there. And I feel now that everything is online, so much availability is there for every type of content, so many things to learn. I feel almost everyone's going to try to learn as many things as possible, since everyone's also going towards being a generalized learner or being a generalist, which is why whenever there's going to be a requirement, there are going to be a lot of people to fill that space. And so the value of it might not be as much as it could have been if there were lesser people to fill a niche. Since there are more people to fill that niche, you have to learn more skills. You have to be better at every skill. Like people talk about being a jack of all, master of one, or being a master of many, or so on and so forth. I feel like being a master of some and being a jack of all is the good approach, but then that being a master of some is going to tend toward being a master of as many things as possible. Because if you are a master of some, there are a lot of people who are going to be masters of some as well. So in that sense, it's going to be difficult unless you pick something which has not seen its peak yet and you feel you're early to the game, which will only happen if you're more self-aware and more like exploring more and being an opportunist. For example, if AR, VR is something which everyone's really a big fan about, but as of now, people are not going to be designing AR and VR. It's far from reaching its peak value. So while you are doing your current product design or any type of design, you can maintain your value right now. But on the side, if you're learning this, you're kind of getting early to the game. So I would suggest those who are enthusiastic about all these latest technologies, don't deep dive into it. Like, don't make it your only thing, because you still need to gain value right now to be taken seriously in the future. So do that on the side such that when its peak is there, you're ready. You've got your guns up and you're ready to shoot your shot. But also be aware of what's happening right now and how you can add your credibility for now. So it's a mix of that.
So in Pajama Profit, we have this one chapter called Robots Will Take Your Job, right? And one of the ways that we explain this is using an adoption curve, right? Folks who have the book, you can open to 116 later, you can check it out. But basically what this means is any technology follows a sort of bell curve, which is initially it's early adoption. Then there is acceptance for that technology, which is people agree that this is something which is rising. Then you have peak popularity of something. Then it sort of becomes commoditized, and then it becomes automated. So things don't immediately get automated. They follow this curve. So every single skill that you're learning lies at a different point in this curve. To make money today, it's very difficult to be an early adopter in something where there might not be enough client demand. To make money today, you might have to go something which is already very, very popular. And now, of course, you will have to compete with people who've been doing it for a longer time. But one of the advantages of this kind of curve is that even if you're an expert in something, what this curve means is that eventually that thing might get automated and you might have to retrain yourself. And when you retrain yourself, you are almost at a similar footing with people who are newer in the field. So like 20 years of experience versus 5 years of experience sort of becomes comparable at that point. So, there's a lot of consequences for this kind of thing.
Yeah, man, definitely. So I feel learning a lot of things is the ideal way to go, but not learning a lot of things such that you're not good at anything. Like being really good at a couple of things and being decent at the rest. And then
we've had this conversation. The generalist versus specialist. If people haven't seen that, there's 2 videos on it on IGTV. You can check that out. Mayank, we have about 5 minutes left in this chat. It's closing in on an hour.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? Any final questions you want to take?
Any final questions do I want to take?
Or ask.
Yeah. I'm excited, man. I want to see what people are up to lately, because human communication has been very less lately. I'm only limited myself to teammates and cohort members or like a couple of friends. Want to see what people are up to right now. So either comment on the YouTube channel, on the live that's there on the YouTube channel, comment what you're up to, what you are exploring. And yeah, like I'm curious about what's out there and what changes have you implemented, or do you see yourself implementing now? Like what change, what permanent change are you trying to, or long lasting change are you going to make in your own process and learning?
Yeah.
What about you?
Sure,
what are you curious about?
I'm just my mindset right now, at least like this week, things change, things take my attention. I think my sort of closing thought for tonight's episode is that there are some things that you can plan, but there are some things which you have to take in the moment, right? Which is forming very, very solid plans for something actually sets you up for weakness. Because when the variables start changing, you start clinging on to your old plan rather than readjusting to the situation and the new information that you have available. So for a lot of folks, I'll say that, if you feel like you don't have a solid plan of what you're doing, that's actually okay. It's totally okay. What you do need to do, however, is be aware. Be aware of what you can do day by day, because learning doesn't happen suddenly, one year later, and you're a better person. If you want to get somewhere, you actually have to every single day make changes towards it. So more than an overall grand plan for your life or your career, make sure that your every single day looks good. Yeah. And the reason I sort of not figured this out, but the reason it was on my mind is with content creation, right? I remember when I first started putting stuff on Instagram, I was always trying to plan shit. I was like, oh, this is how my grid is going to look on Instagram. I should make a buffer of 10 videos ahead. I should know that next week what I'm going to be uploading. But versus now my approach is every single day I get up and I'm like, what do I want to do today? Like the GPT-3 video, I didn't plan that. There was a conversation happening that day. Varun put out something. I was seeing it a lot on Twitter. I made a tweet about it and I was like, I can convert this tweet into a video. So that is something I couldn't have planned. So I think planning sort of puts you in a vulnerable position. Be open to change.
Being open to improvisation.
Be open to improvisation. I would say embrace ambiguity rather than trying to avoid ambiguity.
Yeah. Yeah, bro. I think that's going to happen a lot. Like now it's totally, that's going to be on everyone's mind. Cool, guys.
Even at a macro level. Even at a macro level.
Yeah.
Even at a macro level, right? Nobody thought COVID is going to happen. Right? Nobody thought we would be in this situation. But now what are we doing? We're adjusting to it. Which is
exactly
at the start of the year in Jan, you might have made plans like I'm gonna go to Bali in this month. I'm gonna work on freelance projects here. I want to do this thing over here. You might have planned your calendar out, but now we're just sort of taking it day by day and seeing what direction to go. So at a very macro level, it is ambiguity. We don't know when things are going to open up. We don't know how things are going to change. So I would say rather than fighting it, at some level, you do have to embrace it. Ambiguity OP in the chat. Let's do this. Last few minutes.
Yeah. This is going to be the biggest change in everyone's behavior, I feel, post this pandemic. It was a great life, man. I really liked, despite YouTube not working out, this was a really great life. I had a great time. For all those who have not followed Whiteboard.fm yet, do follow Whiteboard.fm. Go to the channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, and check out all the IGTV videos and clips. And what are your final words, Abhinav?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll upload this video on YouTube, so you can check it out later. We'll also start clipping this for our YouTube channel. See you all. Thanks for joining in. We will see you next Thursday. Till then, embrace ambiguity and keep moving forward. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.